welcome back to Unrestricted Thoughts TV. I'm Alex, and this is Adam.
So we had originally scheduled to post our third video a few days ago, and we were going to talk about voter fraud, Joe Biden on the Breakfast Club, Scarborough, and a lot of other things. It was a really great episode, but over the time span that we went through in those few days, something else dominated the news cycle. The George Floyd murder and the protest and riots following. So we felt, as I guess I would call us independent media, that it is almost our job to, when there's issues like this, when there's injustices like this, to really speak out and use our platform as a platform for good and for change, so that hopefully these tragic stories don't keep happening.
Adam's going to explain the whole situation that happened with George Floyd about 4 days ago. Even though most people already know it, we're just going to go through it from top to bottom, T to B, to make sure everybody's up to speed, unless you've been living under, because maybe someone's been living under a rock the past
Something
4
like
days.
that.
I don't know. It's possible, though. And then we'll dive into the riots, the protests. We'll go into the politicization of this whole event. That's a hard word for me. I'm sorry. It's a big one. Trump declaring martial law. We'll go into the media transition from the coronavirus into Floyd and many other things.
So to start out, George Floyd was a man. He's from Houston, Texas, and he was in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He was stopped and detained by police officers after police were called to a restaurant under suspicion that someone had attempted to use a counterfeit $20 bill, a fake $20 bill. So they came there, they apprehended George Floyd, they got him into cuffs, and they put him in the car. That part of this is not on the original video that most people have seen. There's more video since it's been released, and that shows that Floyd was in the car handcuffed before he was dragged out, put on the ground, and kneeled on. So that's just something I wanted to clear up. Now, there was 4 officers involved in this. They all kneeled on George Floyd, and the primary officer, I guess you could say, the only officer who has been charged to this point, Derek Chauvin, was charged with third-degree murder and manslaughter, which personally, I think they should all 4 be charged with first-degree murder, or at least him. But any charge is better than no charge, in my opinion. So after this news and the video came out, this story really set fire to the media. It really enraged a lot of people, and rightfully so, because if you look at the video, George Floyd is an unarmed man. He has presumably done nothing wrong. And remember, in America, we work under the presumption of innocence, not the presumption of guilt. You are innocent until proven guilty, and there's so much stuff about your rights to due process, your rights when being detained, and all of these things that were just trampled on by these officers. And more than a black issue or a white issue, this is a human issue. This is really an upsetting thing where it's like, we've got an issue right now that a lot of people have tried to politicize, and you're going to talk about that in a little bit. Mm-hmm. But this is an issue we all agree on. For the most part, the vast majority of
America
agrees, like 99.9%.
This is something that cannot be tolerated, and justice should be served for this man's death. That is something that I believe a majority of Americans believe in, and that everybody pretty much gets behind.
And that's something where that's a common misconception, because a lot of people shared it's a fake image of, one, it's not even the officer who killed George Floyd, but it's a fake image of this guy wearing a fake Trump hat that says, "Make whites great again."
His name is Jonathan Lee Riches, and he is a troll, and he likes to go all over social media and spread false information, because that's just what he does. You can look up his Facebook page. He made a fake Covington High School Facebook page a few years back. He's done all kinds of stuff. He actually pretended to be the uncle of the Sandy Hook shooter also. So let that sink in. This guy just likes playing with people. He likes attention. I don't really know why. I don't know where he comes from, but that's what he does. When you share stuff like that, you are literally playing right into what he wants you to do.
And it's contributing to the problem with division in America, because the majority of Trump supporters would tell you, all of us thought that what happened to George Floyd is a tragedy. And all of us think that, well, all of us that can agree that cops who mistreat people should be punished. We might not agree to the same extent.
That doesn't, when we say that doesn't go for a single color of people. That goes for everybody. We're not boxing anybody in. We are not like everybody, whether it's a cop kills a white person, a black person, a yellow, a green, an orange person. I don't care. If it was unjustified and what happened was wrong, then they should be punished. Like, that's 100%. That's the reason why they have body cams, but some cops are even turning it off.
Yeah,
like what happened with McAtee a few days ago. So
let me break that down for him, because that's one that it's still not out of the local news cycle. It's only being reported in the area in which it happened. Tyler McAtee was a man who he went by Barbecue Man. That's what people would call him in the community. He owned a barbecue restaurant, as you might have figured out. He would do a lot of free meals for people, and specifically, he would give free meals to cops, no charge. Do all this stuff like, I'll cater for your community event, I'll cater for this, that. Just great guy all around. And he was killed Monday morning at his barbecue stand after the National Guard officers, they heard a shot in their direction. So, keeping composed and calm, they decided to do the rational thing and let 20 to 30 shots off in the opposite direction. Mr. McAtee was killed, and his body laid out in the street for several hours afterwards. He was unarmed. He wasn't protesting. The reason the National Guard officers were supposedly around there was because of violent protests, the riots and such. That's the reason they've been deployed. And that's another thing we're going to go into later, is the National Guard and the martial law and all of that.
Mm-hmm. So one thing we want to discuss also is how quickly the media transitioned from coronavirus into George Floyd. And we are not saying that this should not get media coverage. We are saying that this should go to show we were out of school the past few months over this virus. It took over our lives.
40 million people are unemployed.
It broke the back of our economy, and then now it doesn't even matter anymore. And that's what we were trying to explain to you. This is just, the media jumps from one thing to the next, whatever pushes their agenda. And this actually falls right in line with what the left is trying to push, and that is division and chaos and violence, because that is in fear, because that is where they get their votes from. That is where people fall back in line to their ideology and thinking when things like this happen, because they are the ones that promote it the most.
Yeah, and what we're saying here is not like they shouldn't have covered this as much as they did. It's just, if you look at the way that these events are covered, do you see on TV any of the stuff where the cops will march with the protesters?
Look at the headlines, too, the way they write the headlines. When you go to watch CNN in the morning, whatever you watch, look at the headlines. Try to see if there is some kind of an emotional or some kind of opinion behind the headline, like something that just wants to make you mad, something that makes you want to go out in the streets.
A horrible orange man locks up more children.
Yeah, something like that. That's what they want you to feel that way. When you act that way, you are literally doing what they want you to do. You are falling in line with what they want to happen, which is wrong.
Yeah, we agree on these things, and we all have agreed on these things. And when there's things like this where people seek to make it into a right or a left issue, this isn't a political issue. And for far too long, the Democratic Party has capitalized on turning issues where we have these tragic events that happen, turning it into political issues. And regardless of making themselves the party that caters to the black person and the Hispanic person and the woman and all this stuff, and actually delivering on policy for the black community, that doesn't happen. And
also takes away from your ethnicity if you don't vote for them.
That's according to Joe Biden, who says that if you don't vote for him, you're not black. This is like,
they're not here for you.
Yeah,
they're not. So please just try to research.
Just
Please,
look into these things. Like Joe Biden's record, that's something I was really excited to talk about. I think we do have a more important thing that we're speaking about now.
Yeah, Floyd.
But his record on criminal justice reform. And we'll go into that in a later episode, and you can look that up yourself. Joe Biden, mass incarceration, that's the easiest thing to look up. But what we also want to talk about is with the way that they did all this stuff with the media, it's in a way that completely abandons the last news cycle. It's not, hey, we're still fighting a global pandemic and this is going on right now and we have all this stuff happening. It's the pandemic is out, social distancing guidelines are eased, do whatever you want, and now we're going to focus on only the riots. You can't go on your social media right now and find anything but like protest and riot videos for the most part. And the whole situation is when you make it seem like the world is about to end, like we all know 2020 has not been the best year. It's been a string of unfortunate event after another, but it's just making life into this miserable charade that we put up with every single day has already deteriorated the spirit of the American person. We already have suicides are up incredibly high. We have all these mental health problems going on. Substance abuse is insane while we're in quarantine. And they did this. They're the reasons why there's these stay-at-home orders and such. And they already have broken down the psyche of the American person. We've got 40 million people unemployed.
And then this happens.
And it's just like...
And it is the perfect tipping point to drive America absolutely insane. A huge injustice. People are already mad. People are already anxious. And then you drive fear into the communities because they're afraid that their houses are going to get looted. And then you actually incite violence also on the other side and encourage people. Well, actually, the way all these rioters, all right, a majority of them or a terrifying number of them are not actually protesters or anything like that. And everybody knows that. A lot of these are paid protesters. And you may say, oh, that's not true. All right, if you don't believe that's true, then a document got leaked 2 days ago, I believe, or maybe it was actually yesterday, that is an instruction manual that was used during the Baltimore riots back in 2015, which are the most comparable riots to now.
If you want to talk about rioting, the last riot that was similar to what we've got right now is the Freddie Gray riots in Baltimore in 2015.
And they were the most destructive, and they burned everything.
Since let's think, how far back can you go before we had that bad of riots again?
Probably L.A. riots.
Yeah.
But so in this document, it says it's a debrief to these people, and it talks about how they need to act. You need to stick to your personality assignment. Like you're literally auditioning for a role in a movie. It says stay away from the ops. All people who are involved need to stay within a group of no larger than 2, so they don't know. They all are supposed to be different and spread out, and they're there to incite violence. And that is exactly what is happening now. And even in this document, I'll even highlight it. It shows how that they get paid. They get paid like 5 to 10% beforehand, and then 20 to 30 following, and then it gets dispersed months after that. And they even admit that do not report this as income because they have it worked out with the IRS already.
Local tax authorities.
This goes all the way through. This goes all the way up. They have rioters. They have people in the government. They have people in the IRS. Hell, they may even have people in law enforcement that are all pushing this because they're making money. And you want to know who's pushing this? George Soros. He's the man who has pushed this for so long. He's been doing it for years, and a lot of you probably don't even know who that is. He's a man that basically makes money off of chaos and makes money off of people hatred and division.
He calls himself a philanthropist, where he basically his job is to donate money to various causes, to fund them, doing whatever his beliefs are, fund causes that support said beliefs. One of his his signature things is, you've definitely looked into this, is the open society. His whole thing is about sort of this global deconstruction of government rules, ability to have freedoms and express yourself and have a role in how things are going. It's all about giving your consent to this governing group of rich people who, for some reason, care about you so much.
He's open about this too.
And
he doesn't care because he's untouchable pretty much right now. Now, he may maybe down the road they'll arrest him, but the person, it says D.A. Donnelly. Do not name the individual in any communications or in person. This does not leave this document. We did some research on this, and District Attorney Donnelly is a man that did a super PAC with Soros, and it's rumored that they're related somehow. I'm not really sure. You can't fact check me on that. But one thing is for sure, that they do know each other. They work together, and that is how they fund their money. They fund it through this man. Soros funds his money through this guy. So now that you see that exists in these protests and in these riots, you may wonder why. Why do they do that? They do that because it muddies up the water. Just if there was, obviously there'd be a little bit of rioting. We can't deny that because we can't tell a different timeline. But it would not be on this scale, and it would not be this bad, and it would not be this damaging, and there would not be that many black and minority businesses that got destroyed, because it's obvious they wouldn't do that to their own businesses. This is here to muddy up the water for the American people and drive division between I'm for this, I'm for George Floyd, I'm for everything, and I'm against what they're doing because of how that they're acting.
Because before this, we could have said, we all agree that what happened was wrong. We all agree he should be in jail, blah, 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 blah. We all understand these things. But now it's turned into an issue of, well, I personally don't believe in beating old women and their husbands who are trying to defend their store from being looted. Yep. I personally don't believe in a man with a sword trying to defend his own business who gets mangled into some weird shape and is all bloodied all over the ground. I personally don't believe in 4 cops in Oakland being shot. I don't believe in cops dying because of this. None of these things are things that we believe in, but it's just like it's turned into an issue where you're either for it or against it to some people. And for some people, if you don't support the destruction and the violence, then you're just as bad as if you don't support George Floyd in the first place, and they equate the two as the same thing, further driving this division.
It's either you're on one side or the other, and that's how they create the division. That's how they create this kind of war that they're wanting to erupt. And the only people that can stop it is not politicians, is not the media, not the government, is us. We have to realize that. We have to realize what is really taking shape right now and put a stop to it so that the actual peaceful protests can occur, while at the same time we hold these people accountable for trying to literally start a race war. Basically, yeah. And even George Floyd's brother has condemned the actions of these people.
Like, he's come out and said, please stop destroying stuff. Like, I understand you're hurting, but please stop looting and damaging things. This doesn't help George's legacy. This isn't what he would have wanted. He's come out and said this in attempts to sort of quell what's going on.
And there was not that much media coverage of that. And that's one of the very first things he said, because it doesn't fit their narrative. It doesn't fit their destructive narrative at all. It literally does not. And here's another example of the left's failed attempts or failed. I don't even know how to explain it. I'm talking about Klobuchar.
Oh, okay. This is another thing that's been underreported, hasn't been talked about a lot, but we talk about, especially with these officers who've done these things many times, who've always been excessive. They've always had these issues against them. Derek Chauvin, the arresting officer, I guess you would say, the one who killed George Floyd, most notably, I guess you would say, the one who you see on that video looking into the camera, he had over 15 prior complaints made to the Minneapolis Police Department about him, And as a result, Amy Klobuchar, she was a senator for one of the Midwestern states, and she ran for president. She dropped out. She endorsed Biden, and just recently it was leaked that she was being vetted for the vice president nomination. So they were looking through her history and everything. And who knows, maybe this is something they turned up, but she declined to prosecute Derek Chauvin. So that police officer who killed George Floyd was out there on the streets, was practicing the same way he has been, and clearly we've seen with all these prior reports, he has been acting that way because people like Klobuchar in positions of power who are so willing to just say, you know what, I'm going to shrug it off, I'm going to close my eyes, I'm going to look the other way, and we're not going to act like there's any issues here. That is the reason that situations like this happen.
Yep. And back to the paid protesters. I'm sorry, I should have tied this in while I was speaking about it. We're still getting better at kind of creating a timeline of how that we go down, so it just takes time.
This sort of ties in with the fact that we're saying that a lot of this violence is manufactured.
Yes, exactly. And so with these protests, I'm going to throw up a bunch of pictures on the screen. There's been pallets of bricks just showing up all over the nation. And by pallets of bricks, I mean a big stack of bricks just showing up in the middle of cities and neighborhoods, nowhere near to construction. And why do you think those are showing up? Conveniently where the protests are occurring.
And conveniently near things like Apple stores, which are made of solid, like they're all just made of glass.
And conveniently near large bodies of glass that they can break. And they can post on the media, and they can sensationalize it. Oh my God, look at what all these people did. Where do you think this stuff comes from? Who do you think funds this stuff?
Like, you don't have private citizens who just say, hey, you know what I think would be really funny today? I'm going to go drop a pallet of bricks that I paid for myself near a large, important building so that these looters and protesters can destroy my city. That sounds like a great idea.
And this is not like one instance. This has popped up all over the country. It's like the Astro World head. It just shows up. It's all over the place. It is literally all over the place. I can't repeat myself enough. It is everywhere right now. And with these paid protesters, they communicate with each other. They know what they're doing. They make money. At the very end of this document, it says you will make bonuses by displaying loyalty to the cause.
So like if you swing on a cop or something, you throw something at them and it really hits someone good,
It's like a game. You get bonus points. Oh, bonus points if I run over that dude with my car. That's basically like
bonus points if I pull the truck driver out of the windshield.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go into now. We're gonna have Alex talk about the whole expression "all cops are bad" and our stances on that, because it's really something crazy for you to make a blanket statement like that, and it's just absolutely untrue. So we're going to go into that a little bit. There's no, like, debunking these blanket statements that people think are, like, just generalizations of people. You can't debunk something that's, like, a stupid thought, honestly. Like, it's such an untrue thing that everyone knows to be untrue that you can't really explain to a lot of these people who believe it that they're wrong.
So, yeah, we've seen that ACAB all over social media, all over Instagram, all cops are bad. A lot of people have posted. A lot of people have shared this. So how are we supposed to promote unity and change among everybody? And the people that are protesting in the streets are protesting because they are tired of being labeled, and they don't want to be targeted, and they don't want to be afraid of being killed, basically. So how are you going to put a whole group of cops into a box systematically and label them as bad? That doesn't make sense. That's hypocritical. That is wrong.
And it doesn't help the goal of this. If you look at the videos, not the ones that CNN and MSNBC are sharing, because those ones are all violent. If you look at the videos where there's cops taking knees with the people, there's cops marching with the people, you've got cops that have escorted the people. Downtown, some of our cops helped out. Some of them were not helpful, but the majority were pretty good. And the thing is, everyone knows someone who's been a police officer or someone who went into policing because they said, you know what, I'm tired of these bad things happening, so I'm going to make a change and I'm going to step up and be that change that I want to see in my community. Those are all out there. These types of people are all out there, and a lot of them are police officers. You don't go into a job like being a police officer if you don't care about other people. I don't believe.
I don't believe that either.
Or you couldn't make it into the military.
Yeah. I mean, of course there's going to be a bad apple. I'm serious. But there's a bad apple in every single race of people, every single group of people, every single profession. There's bad apples in the business world. There's bad lawyers. There's bad doctors. There's bad coroners. There's bad everybody.
Oh, speaking of bad coroners, since you got me on that topic real quick. So the official coroner in this area for the George Floyd murder said that he did not die of asphyxiation, which is like basically not being able to breathe. Asphyxiation. Yeah. Having himself kneeled on for 9 minutes. Then, with their new funds and everything, the George Floyd family hired an independent investigator to go in and do their own autopsy. It was asphyxiation. It was something that anyone with like medical background can really
could
tell.
Have understood.
Like, my mom is a dentist, and if someone gets shot, still call 911. But she did go to medical school, so she does also understand these things. She watched it, and she feels the exact same way. This is something where we saw what happened, and like we talked about, I don't know if we mentioned it, but there's other coroners like this. But you brought up coroners. I just had to bring that and put that in there because that was one of the most infuriating things for me was seeing them try to say
inconclusive.
We don't know how he got murdered. We can rule it a homicide, but we don't know how, even though we got a video of this man kneeling on his neck for 9 damn minutes. Like, it's a joke, and this is what we talk about right now. I'm going to go and break down a lot of these solutions we can do, but we've got a lot of people like that in these positions that need to be voted out. It starts with, if you're mad about the riots, you can't get mad about peaceful protesting. That's everyone's right. But the riots, if you're mad about someone who let people come in and trample law enforcement and destroy your community, then be mad at your mayors, be mad at y'all's district attorneys, be mad at the sheriff, be mad about these things.
Don't be mad at each other.
This isn't something where it's an issue that has gone on for so long, this police brutality thing that we speak about, that it's going to reach a boiling point. The water can only go so far up in the pot before it just bubbles over and starts lighting the house on fire. And that's what I genuinely believe is happening. You see, like, in Charleston, we've had all these issues before. We had the Charleston 9 Mother Emanuel Church where they all got killed. We didn't have violent riots. We had the Walter Scott case where an unarmed black man was shot 8 times in the back by a police officer and killed. The cop lied about it, then the video came out. He was the only cop who killed someone in the past 6-7 years to be convicted for it. Walter Scott in South Carolina, no violent protest. But because of this, because of what just recently happened, and I believe good 80% of the people inciting a lot of the violence are those paid protesters we were talking about, but we don't want to just go in circles here. But what we're saying is, at a certain point, you have to expect these things to happen when you don't make any changes after these deaths happen over and over and over and over again. And I could just repeat all the different names to you over and over and over. But this is an issue that we've talked about for too long. I was out there, it was either yesterday or 2 days ago with one of my friends, and I said, how great would it be if all this stuff, like all the violence and everything that's gone into it, actually ended this police brutality issue we have? And he was like, oh, that would be amazing. I don't think it'll happen. What happens the next morning? We have to hear about another man killed by law enforcement.
But the thing is yes, there's been a lot of injustice with that. We obviously are taking that into account. I just saw a video before I even got on here of a man that was trying to defend a TV store who got shot and killed. This is pretty real what's going on. These people are killing each other, and how can we fix that? We can sit here and talk about it all day and rant about it, but actually how can we fix that? And we can fix it by voting these mayors and these governors out of office. Someone needs to get in there and actually run against them and get them out of office. Get these district attorneys out of office. Get all these bad apples gone.
The mayor of New York's daughter got arrested for throwing shit at police officers.
Exactly. It's obvious that they do not help in these situations, and they never have. They have not been able to help in the past few decades. So we also need to hold Antifa, which is just recently got designated as a terrorist organization. Antifa, if you don't know, is a group of anarchists.
They call themselves anti-fascists.
Who are overwhelmingly white. They're a bunch of basement dwellers who think that they are doing some kind of amazing thing, hurting people, hitting a dude with a wrench in a sock, burning down businesses. They are part of this paid protesting also.
They're your gauged earrings, baggy hoop flannels, skateboard types. You'll see in a lot of these places, like where you see a lot of this damage happening, you'll see white kids with skateboards just bashing windows in. So that's not what we think is a solution, obviously. We made that very clear. But yeah, we've got to vote these people out of office, first off. That's what, if you go through the streets of Charleston, you'll see on the boards they put up in place of their windows that have been shattered, resign for their mayor. Mm-hmm. Like, we've got to start doing stuff about this, and then I'm going to break down the rest of the stuff that we can do. There's a lot of stuff you can do, but these are just some things I put together. Peacefully protest, obviously. That's one thing. If you want to complain about it, then you should be out there protesting if you're able to. If you're going to complain about the issues going on, do what you can. Because I'm tired of just seeing Instagram action and not seeing anything else.
And also, on the other side, you can go out and stand in solidarity, but at the same time, defend your business. And we see these men and women, mostly men actually, going out and guarding these small businesses and exercising their Second Amendment right, but everybody heckles them, and heckle is a very nice word to say, says some very messed up things to them for simply defending their own business. They literally could be out there protesting with you, standing in solidarity with you, trying to promote unity, but at the same time,
they have to worry about their business being destroyed. They have to worry
about their business, being completely burned down. And people don't understand that things can go both ways sometimes. And like what happened in Scottsdale, Arizona, they had the protests come through. They had people exercise their Second Amendment rights, defending their businesses. Nothing happened. Went completely peaceful. Everybody was happy. There's not enough police around for them to be there at every single place. And they're not even wanted anyways. So why don't we just do it ourselves, which is what's been going on.
If we abolish the police, then your only alternative is a bunch of Americans who are loaded up with firearms.
Yeah. And that is not where we need to go. Yeah. That is, like they're trying to drive this into our suburbs. That is not where this needs to go, obviously. And
I'm going to break down like the biggest ones.
We probably need to wrap it up here soon. We're pushing 30 minutes. We had that skip earlier because we had a camera problem, so we're just gonna mix it all together. But yeah, we all need to understand and recognize this brainwashing that is occurring, and be able to tell the difference between what is being used to incite violence and incite anxiety and bring fear to us, and push it away and keep heading on the same path we need to be on to peacefully change and reform.
Yeah. So if you made it this far and really actually like care about making a change in these things, I'm going to break down the peacefully protest and vote. Those are a given. But I'm going to break down what you really can do. Sheriff elections. In Greenville County in particular, we have a sheriff right now who really just doesn't seem to care that much about what has recently happened. He hasn't made an official statement. The policies have not been changed. There's been no emphasis on more training or anything like that. And in South Carolina, you are 8 times more likely if you're shot by a police officer that it was in Greenville County than any other area. So what I'm saying from me to you right now, mobilize for Paul Guy if you are in Greenville County. that is the person. If you care about these issues, if you care about police brutality, his entire platform is based around giving the community a voice, getting the people involved, really giving back that power to the people and preventing these things from happening. Then what you also are going to have to do, and this is as far as holding people accountable, we've got to force justice reform, police brutality. If this is what you care about, legalization of medical or recreational marijuana, you've got to send letters to these candidates for office and say, what is your stance on this? I want your stance to be known, and I want you to put it either on your website, or I want you to come out and say what this is. If we have enough people saying to Congressman whoever, Senator so-and-so, say something about this, I'm one of your constituents and this is an issue I care about, they're going to have to respond. We've got to force things like justice reform onto the plates of the Republicans, because that's what it took last year or a few years ago when we passed the First Step Act, was people like Senator Tim Scott, our senator, who has also authored the Walter Scott Notification Act to create a database, a national database on officer-involved shootings when they kill someone like this, so we'd know about it. He fought for criminal justice reform with tons of Republicans. And there was Republicans who voted against the First Step Act. But it's going to take people saying, I'm a Republican, or I'm not even a Republican, but I'm going to either vote for you or against you based on what your stance on justice reform is, what your stance on legalization is, what your stance on changing police brutality is. Because once they hear, oh, these people really want to know this, and I'm not saying anything about it, I'm just using Google how to run as a Republican, that's when they're going to start having to answer for these things. So you're going to, if you want to know who you can contact, leave a comment below and say, how do I contact my representatives?
And if you want a source, if you disagree, if you have another comment you want to talk to us about, leave it below. We made this episode so long because there was a lot to cover, and there's still a lot we did not cover. We will definitely cover as much as we can in the coming episodes. And
just quickly to break down this whole myth that there is no racial bias in policing and who people get killed. Cops kill approximately, based on the numbers, 3 people per day in America. The numbers, it's staggering to look at America compared to other nations. They don't have nearly the number of police killings.
all right,
We got to explain that. But the people who are watching this, the Republican people watching this, don't give 2 shits about any of this stuff. And I'm tired of seeing stuff happen because Republicans don't want to step up to the plate and say, you know what, we're right, or they're right about this. Cops shouldn't be killing people. It's true. And it's...
What about the cops that just died yesterday in Cleveland?
It wasn't in Cleveland.
Oakland.
One cop in Oakland. That person's going to get charged. That's the difference. 99% of cop murders since 2013 have gone uncharged. And then we've had 1 conviction since then, and that was the Walter Scott case. And that's why people are so mad. That's why people are burning businesses down. It's not right. I don't agree with it. But the reason people are doing what they are doing right now is they are fed up with seeing people killed day after day after day. And it's like that because we had Ahmaud Arbery, then we had Breonna Taylor, then we had George Floyd, and now we have Thomas McAtee.
But I will stop you there. A majority of people that are burning these businesses down, like we said earlier, we do not want to contradict ourselves, are there for the money, they're paid, or they're Antifa affiliated. Okay? We don't want to muddy that up.
Yeah.
We know that.
So
a majority of people that want to enact change are peacefully protesting. Yeah. They're not rioting.
And to sort of wrap this all up and everything, we get a lot of questions like, what's your goal with this? What's your purpose with it? Our audience is really broad. We originally created it just, I guess our target audience originally was just young people our age. But what it's grown into is I've got my little sister's friends in middle school watching this. And my sister is telling me about this stuff. We've got our parents' friends and people in my mom's office saying, yeah, I watched your show. So we've got a really diverse audience here, full of people who haven't yet had their opinions formed on issues, these serious issues, about injustice, about police brutality. It's for all people, white, black, yellow, whatever. All of these things that you either don't have an opinion yet or you've already set your opinion. You probably haven't heard the stances on these issues that we've brought to the table today. You probably haven't heard from two young people, young conservatives, saying, here's what we have to do about these things. Hopefully what you get out of this is I should either think about this more, do some more research, or look into how I can help positive change in this country. And I think our real goal with this is to both form and change the opinions of others so that we can help unify and get real change done, honestly. But
all right, we're gonna wrap that up.
Thank you for listening. If you made it this far,
feel free to comment below, agree to disagree, and we'll see y'all in a few days.